Are you missing the more tragic and disturbing aspects of the Hulk after seeing him dab and say bruh over the last few years in the MCU? If so, you are in for a treat, because today we will be exploring one of the darkest and scariest Hulk stories ever released by Marvel. I'm Andrew Boyd, and today on Top 10 Nerd I will be attempting to explain the first 10 issues of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk is quite different from many other modern Hulk stories that tend to be cosmic action stories like Planet Hulk, and instead tries to return the character to his roots by telling an incredibly dark and disturbing horror story that explores the nature of good and evil and the gray area in between. It is a 50-issue arc that would be much too long to get into in one video, so we will be taking a look at the first 10 issues, and if you want, we might continue this deep dive in an eventual part 2 and beyond. Issue 1 begins with a quote by Carl Jung that sets the tone for the story. Man is on the whole less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. At a gas station, a teenage girl is shopping for a drink while a drifter looks at a newspaper that talks about how the Hulk is assumed dead. An armed robber comes in and tries to rob the cashier, but is spooked when the girl drops a glass bottle in shock at the sight of him. He instinctively turns and shoots the girl. The drifter is shocked at this and starts to get angry. Before we can find out if the robber will like him when he's angry, he shoots the drifter in the head, seemingly killing him. The cashier begs for his life, but not wanting to leave any witnesses, the robber kills him too. We are then introduced to a reporter named Jackie McGee. She is clearly a riff on the investigative reporter Jack McGee, who was hunting the Hulk in the classic 1970s Incredible Hulk television series. Jackie is covering the robbery for the local paper and is informed by the local police captain that they are not optimistic about finding the murderer. Meanwhile, in the morgue across town, night falls and the drifter comes back to life, transforming into the Hulk. Hulk goes after the distraught robber, who we learn was only stealing to try and pay off a debt to a local biker gang so he can support his family. Hulk attacks the gang and chases the robber, who he soon corners. Hulk, who by the way is extremely articulate in this series, asks if the gun made him feel powerful, and if he secretly wanted to shoot those people to feel that power unleashed. The robber begs for mercy, saying that it was a mistake. I'm not a bad guy, am I? Hulk closes in on him, retorting, "What do you think?" The next day, Jackie is talking to the police in the hospital. The entire gang has been severely injured, and the robber may never wake up, and has almost broken every bone in his body. The police reveal to Jackie that the gang members are claiming that it was the work of the Hulk, and that Bruce Banner must not be dead. In a nearby motel room, Bruce sits contemplating his own morality, asking his reflection if he is a bad person. Issue 2 begins with Bruce having a nightmare about the hours after his exposure to the gamma bomb when he was believed to be in the walking ghost phase. The walking ghost phase is a real term used to describe the hours after exposure to severe radiation where the body has yet to show symptoms of the horrible death that is to come. Bruce remembers the terror of feeling fine, but hearing the clicking of the Geiger counter telling him that this was not the case. The frustration of this triggered a Hulk out. As Bruce wakes up, we learn about what his life has become. He is on the run, owning nothing, not even the clothes on his back, which he always loses when the Hulk comes out. He survives by begging or stealing what he can during the day, but remarks that the night belongs to the Hulk. This is a throwback to the very first Hulk comics, where rather than being triggered by rage, Banner's Hulkouts were triggered by the rising and falling sun. This was the cause of the transformations until Incredible Hulk number 4, when Bruce began triggering the transformations with the use of a machine. It wasn't until about a year later in Tales to Astonish number 60 when the Hulkouts began to be triggered by emotional outbursts. Bruce has found that the Hulk is able to guide him to situations where he is needed with an almost psychic accuracy, and has been spending his time trying to do good to atone for his past sins. This brings him to a small town where several people are dying one after each other. This chain of grief started with the death of the town's star quarterback, whose father was a doctor specializing in radiation treatment. Bruce visits the graveyard and realizes that the quarterback's grave is giving off gamma radiation, and that the string of deaths is a result of people visiting the grave, getting radiation poisoning, dying, and then infecting their loved ones when their graves are visited. Bruce tries to call in an anonymous tip to the government, but in order to be believed, has to reveal his identity to the operator. He climbs a mountain and finds a glowing green cave, where he discovers the radiation doctor, Dr. Fry, who has been transformed into a glowing green ghost-like gamma creature. A walking ghost, if you will. He is surrounded surrounded by the dead bodies of people who discovered the cave that he has been killing in order to avoid them knowing he is alive. He attacks Bruce, but Hulk comes out. Fry admits to the Hulk that after his wife died, he started fearing death, and in order to avoid it, created his own gamma formula inspired by Banner's work. It seemed to work, with no side effects. So when his son announced that he was going away to play football at college, Fry gave him the formula to help him avoid injury on the field. Unfortunately, it turned out that the reason Fry hadn't had any adverse effects was because he had developed a minor tolerance to gamma radiation due to his constant exposure to it through his work. His son got sick fast, bleeding green out of his eyes and throwing up green bile worthy of Danny DeVito's Penguin. The son started talking about how he could see a green door below them and that someone was looking through it. He died, and soon after, Fry began transforming into a gamma creature. Hulk explains the consequences that his actions have had on the town, and Fry begs for his life as he is still afraid of death. Hulk tears off his limbs and buries him in the cave, sealing off the entrance, leaving him to spend eternity buried alive and alone. The issue ends with Fry reconsidering his position and screaming and begging for a death that will not come. Something I can relate to as someone who saw X-Men Dark Phoenix in theaters. Issue 3. Jackie McGee is interviewing people who witnessed an incident involving the Hulk and the villain Hotshot. Each witness is giving a very different perspective on the events, with each of their stories being drawn in a different art style. Hotshot had taken a church hostage because he believed that his girlfriend Jess had been possessed, and he wanted to get her an exorcism. Like Dr. Fry's son, she had been rambling about a green door that she had been seeing in visions. Hulk busts in and stops Hotshot, and Jess is found dead in a motel with her head spun the wrong way around. The words "green door" have been scrawled on the wall. Hotshot is blamed for her death and hangs himself in prison soon after. Jackie puts the story together, but gets a phone call from Walter Lenkowski, aka Sasquatch of Alpha Flight. He also wants to find Bruce as he needs help with an issue he is having with his Sasquatch side. Issue 4. Walter arrives in South Dakota to talk to McGee. He explains his origin to her. Although a Canadian, he was attending Penn State University on a football scholarship, where he was rooming with a young Bruce Banner, who had transferred to Penn for a semester to use their gamma facilities. Although most considered Walter a jock, he also had a passion for science and was inspired by his roommate to start learning about gamma and became his research assistant. Bruce would sometimes go off on Walter, resenting the fact that he was already beloved as a football player and was trying to also become a gamma scientist, something Bruce considered his territory. Walter went on to be a football star until he saw on the news what Bruce had become. He made it his mission to replicate Banner's work in a more controlled fashion, and using his NFL fortune and help and funding from the Canadian government's superhero monitoring agency, Department H, conducted an experiment quite similar to the one that transformed Banner into the Hulk in both the 70s TV show and the 2008 MCU film. The goal was to create a creature that could act as a deterrent for the Hulk, but as the experiment was conducted in the Arctic Circle, where the walls of reality are thinner, Walter became Sasquatch and saw the green door. A demon known as Tanarak entered him and started causing trouble, but that issue was dealt with all the way back in Alpha Flight Volume 1, Issue 23, and Walter insists that he has been demon-free ever since. Now that I've gone on my traditional tangent about Alpha Flight, let's get back to the Hulk. Walter's story causes Jackie to remember an incident when she was a child, where the Hulk went on a rampage in her hometown when she was a child and she saw him, developing a lifelong obsession with the Jade Giant. She and Walter begin tailing Bruce, stopping at bars where he has been spotted to try and find out where he is going. At one of these bars, a fight breaks out, and while trying to break it up, Walter is stabbed in the back. He is forced to experience every Canadian's worst nightmare while traveling in the States and is taken to the hospital for a no doubt very expensive surgery. While sitting in the waiting room, Jackie wonders why Walter didn't transform into Sasquatch when he was stabbed. Bruce shows up and talks to Jackie, telling her that they need to evacuate the hospital. In the operating room, Walter transforms into Sasquatch and begins attacking the surgeons. Issue 5. Issue 5 begins with a flashback aboard the Alpha Flight space station. Although originally Canada's greatest super team, Marvel has changed this so that they have become an international task force operating in space, being led by Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. Now, I am not a fan of this. I mean, no disrespect to Captain Marvel, but why the f isn't an American in charge of Alpha Flight? It's our one cool super team. Ugh. Anyways, stay on topic, Andrew. This isn't an Alpha Flight video, it's a video about The Hulk. Anyways, in this flashback, Carol Danvers tells Sasquatch that the team is concerned that he is getting more aggressive in the field. Longtime team member Puck points out that it is becoming increasingly rare that Walter is seen in his human form. Walter brushes off their concerns, but when in private, discovers that it is becoming more and more difficult for him to return to his human form. In the present at the hospital, Banner gets McGee to evacuate the hospital while he goes to confront Sasquatch, who has eaten his entire surgical team. Bruce asks Walter if they can talk, but Sasquatch says, "I'm not Walter," and attacks Bruce, triggering his transformation into the Hulk. They fight, and Hulk deduces that Walter stayed in his Sasquatch form too long, and as a result, something got into him through the green door. The demon controlling Sasquatch reveals that he is actually the spirit of Bruce's evil dead father, Brian Banner. Now, Brian is a piece of work who is responsible for a lot of the trauma in Bruce's life and the death of his mother. He has fought Bruce multiple times over the years and is one of the few people that Bruce and the Hulk fear. This causes the Hulk to struggle in the fight before he realizes that it is Bruce who has a reason to fear Brian, not him. Brian reveals that he is being used as a host personality for some other being known as the One Below All. He uses Walter's claws to blind Hulk. Brian corners McGee, but Hulk absorbs the gamma in Walter's body, causing him to transform back into his human form. Hulk allows McGee to ask him one question. She asks how to become like him, and Hulk tells her to go home and leaves. Walter wakes up and realizes he no longer has the power to transform into Sasquatch. Hulk realizes that when he absorbed Walter's gamma, he also absorbed Brian Banner into him. Issue 6. Bruce is in a motel. He only has hazy memories of what happened at the hospital, but knows that Hulk has absorbed something from Walter, and therefore hasn't let the Hulk out in 2 days. Hulk writes a note to Banner telling him they must return home. In California, Bruce's wife, Betty Ross, watches reports about the Hulk on the news and reasons that it can't be him, as if Bruce was alive, he surely would have reached out. We discover that her and the Hulk's other allies are being watched by an organization known as the Shadow Base. They have found Dr. Fry and are trying to use him to create a creature that can battle the Hulk. In order to find the Hulk, they decide to use the recent incident with Sasquatch to their advantage. On Alpha Flight Space Station, Walter is being examined by longtime teammate Shaman, who suspects that the force that took him over was creation's other dark half, the One Below All. Captain Marvel comes in and reveals that the US government is wanting to extradite Walter and have him put to death for his involvement in the hospital incident. The only way to prevent this is to capture the Hulk and hand him over to the government with the help of a super team that it actually makes sense for her to be a member of, the Avengers. In Iowa, Bruce is making his way home to the Gamma test site where the Hulk was born. Hulk believes that the extra power of the site will give him the strength to defeat Brian. Danvers shows up with the Avengers and tries to take him into custody, but he transforms into the Hulk and prepares to take on his former teammates. Issue 7. Hulk fights the Avengers, managing to take out Thor, Captain America, Black Panther, Iron Man, and She-Hulk, while Captain Marvel works to evacuate a nearby town. Iron Man is weirdly eager to try out a weapon known as the Helios laser. They fire it and it reduces the whole town to ash and turns Bruce into crispy bits. He is turned over to the Shadow Base, who split him into separate pieces and keep the various body parts in jars to prevent Hulk from healing while they study him. The scientists at the Shadow Base are studying Hulk's healing factor as they continue to torture the vivisected hero. On Alpha Flight Space Station, Danvers tells McGee about how the Hulk has been taken by the US government without a trace, as anyone who could give them information has become unreachable. Although he no longer has his powers, Walter is still an expert in gamma radiation and is put in charge of a new team by Captain Marvel with the mission of locating the Hulk. They call themselves Gamma Flight as a bit of an inside joke, although there actually was already a Marvel team known as Gamma Flight. You see, back when Alpha Flight operated under the Canadian government, they had various training teams that heroes would join while they worked their way up to the main team, one of which was Gamma Flight. Ugh. Focus, Andrew, it's not an Alpha Flight video. Hulk, you're talking Hulk! In the lab, Hulk reveals that he has been allowing the scientists to study him so that he can better understand himself, and could have escaped at any time. He snaps his fingers, creating a shockwave that shatters the jars, allowing his various body parts to reassemble. He absorbs the cruel scientist who has been torturing him, and escapes to make his way to the Gamma Bomb site. Issue 9. The villain Bushwhacker is working for the Shadow Base and is tracking the Hulk as he continues on his journey. The Shadow Base has made a deal with Carl Creel, aka aka the Absorbing Man, and have been experimenting on him to make him stronger so that he can defeat the Hulk. The experiments give him the ability to absorb gamma power and turns his skin red. Hulk gets to the base but realizes that it was actually Brian Banner's idea to go there so that he could get rid of the Hulk. Hulk is about to leave when he is attacked by Absorbing Man. They fight, but Hulk grows weaker and emaciated every time he lands a blow. Creel absorbs too much of Hulk's power and ends up absorbing Brian Banner and the One Below All. Absorbing Man's consciousness is transported to another realm where the One Below All appears before him in a form Creel can comprehend and tells him that as a creature of pride, he was always going to end up in hell. Back on Earth, Creel's body tears itself apart in front of a shocked Hulk. Issue 10. Aboard Alpha Flight's space station, Walter gets a positive ID on Hulk's gamma signature and sets out with Gamma Flight and McGee to track him down. Creel is still stuck in the other realm and cries about how sorry he is. Back on Earth, his mutilated body repeats the words to an unimpressed Hulk, but continues to attack him. Hulk rips out Absorbing Man's spine and uses it to beat the crap out of him. Jackie, Puck, and Walter show up in a ship to try and speak to Hulk, but Bushwhacker uses a sniper rifle to take a shot at Hulk, making Hulk think that Gamma Flight is firing on him. He is sent into a blind rage, and with a thunderous Hulk smash, takes out the ship. Hulk comes to his senses when he sees Creel running towards the test site. He realizes that Brian's plan was to absorb more gamma radiation so he could open the green door. Before he can go after Creel, Puck shoots him with a plasma rifle. Creel absorbs the gamma radiation and opens the green door, transporting Hulk, Jackie, Puck, Walter, and Bushwhacker into the other realm. Jackie asks where they are, and the Hulk turns to her and says, "Welcome to hell." Well, that is the first 10 issues of Immortal Hulk. Hopefully this taste of the story will encourage you to pick up and read this great 50-issue series. Check out the other videos in our Attempting to Explain series and let us know if you want a part 2 to this video exploring the next 10 issues. In the meantime, for my next Attempting to Explain video, I'll leave it up to you. Will it be All-Star Superman or Batman Nightfall? The choice is yours. Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd.